30.
Right,
I'd like to call the meeting of the Wastewater Implementation Committee meeting to order. Thank you all for coming. We have a great group here today. This is being recorded, and I'd first like to say a little bit about Peter DeBacher. Peter, as you might have heard, or if you didn't, is up and running, but he's can't run very far. He's got a couple blood clots, as he mentioned in his email to us, and I just ask you to raise your hand signifying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, before we leave that, one of the items here, I'm just trying to come up with it, was the update or the there was a list of items.
What number are you on?
Actually, it's in here, but
It's
yeah,
number
but-
5.
You're referring to the list of items that
Yeah,
are in the meeting
that the committee
certificate?
needs to review. You had brought it up, oh yeah, right there. The MEPA certificate of the items and things that the WIC needs to monitor going forward. Now, is that out, the MEPA certificate? With all?
Yeah,
Oh, you have that.
MEPA
Oh.
stands for the Mass Environmental Policy Act Office.
Yeah.
And you received that certificate back in May.
Yeah, yeah,
There were
okay.
several items in there that the town needs to monitor going forward. And so you discussed at the last committee meeting that maybe in August, September, you would dedicate one of your meetings to going through and itemizing and putting together a list so that everybody's clear on what needs to actually be done.
Sorry about that.
This is not a firehouse. You're supposed to raise your hand.
Hear it in the right ear.
Sorry about that.
I think we cut you off there at the end.
Yeah,
I think I might qualify for the Bee Gees.
Yeah.
No, I'm all set. So I do have a copy of that, and we'll go back at it and be ready. All right, thanks.
So should we put this on the agenda for the August 17th meeting?
I would think so, yeah.
I would think we should.
So get us going.
Okay, so noted. David, could we make that note for these minutes of today's meeting? Any other items that you noticed that need more detail at this time? Thank you, Alan.
Yes, sir.
All right, David, and Hines, I guess Hines, this is your baby, the CDM Smith invoice, number 2 on the agenda.
I don't have one in front of me. Is there one that we were expecting?
Yeah, no, there is no invoice for this past month. We've been doing minimal. Our contract, we had essentially billed up to the last amount. Chris Clark signed our contract, a new contract for the $25,000 that we discussed at the last meeting last week. So that's the one we'll be working off of.
No current invoice.
No? Okay. Comments?
I just have one question. I thought at the last meeting, we said there was 40,000, and that 20 of it was for David, and 20 was for our outreach person. So that has changed?
As far as I recall, it was 40 for the combination of those, but it was never split as to how. It was just
Okay.
like combine
All
that
right.
and this. I
All
don't
right.
think they had ever assigned it was a total value.
And back in March, we had provided a memo of what we thought would be needed of 25. So I think the committee had pretty much endorsed that that was what should be submitted at the last meeting.
All right, so then we're left with the 15 for this outreach person.
Correct.
Okay.
At this time. Yeah.
All right,
Which would be through whenever the person starts, through
Right.
June 30th.
okay. Yes,
So, I mean, dependent upon when they start,
all right,
determines how far it will go.
all right, all right.
So everybody's understanding, clear on that? The division, 25 and 15? Anything else on invoice? All right. Number 3, discussion of the Cape Cod Commission's One Cape Conference held on June 23rd and 24th. I heard through the grapevine that Harwich had a good attendance to that. Since I couldn't be there, could those who attend give us some of your initial impressions?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, bring it on.
Being relatively new to the group, I found the workshop to be very informative, all right? I thought they had a lot of good information. One of the things that, and I think that would be very interesting to the people that are listening, is that there is a website from Cape Cod Commission that is capecodcommission.org/blackbox. And in that is a lot of tools, and I have looked at it, but I'm not proficient with it, I've looked at it, that there's a lot of tools in there for people to look at that helps explain what's going on. There's different modules that are in there, and it really is worthwhile looking at. There's also a second website, which is capecodcommission.org/OneCape, and all the presentations that were presented are there, that you can bring them up and look at them online. So I thought that was very useful for me to go back over. So I did get that out of it. I thought some of the things that they brought up at the sessions afterward on the Friday afternoon were also very helpful, at least for me, with some of the outreach scenarios that they brought up, and I thought that was really helpful. I think Alan probably got more out of it than I did, because he has a better and longer history with it, so.
Well, for me, I think the opening session was probably the most dynamic part of it, because it had all the players on stage, beginning with EPA, the regional federal EPA, Mass DEP, Conservation Law Foundation, I mean, all the players, and each of them, as they spoke, in regards to all of Cape Cod that morning, because every town was represented, that there is no saying no to this
Yes.
project. It has to move forward. There is no other direction. And if it doesn't happen one way, it will happen another. And that was it, pretty much cut and dry from all the players. And there, I have to say, in this whole process, Cape Cod has brought about, would you say, massive changes into the thinking of all of these agencies as to how wastewater treatment would be done, and willing to try new ways? Huh? Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, the big issue is that wastewater treatment in general has changed in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Because it's now nutrient-driven.
Yep.
You know, back 25 years ago, it was all about pathogens and those things, which is what Title V was designed to address.
Yep.
But now it's all about the nutrient aspects, whether it's nitrogen in the salt water or phosphorus in the fresh waters. That's why you see some innovations being done towards on-site systems and those things, but that clearly is what's driving that, and that's why the original water quality plan in '78 that Barnstable County had done, you know, that was really driven around bacteria, pathogens, those things, not nutrients. So they've upgraded it to that, which is great. You know, and you heard a little bit of discussion of the next one may be the contaminants of emerging concern.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
heard a couple presentations on that.
That's right.
So,
Yeah, I mean, all of the things that were in the prior outlooks are still there as far as, you know, the contaminants. But the clean water aspect has definitely moved well ahead. You know, all these areas of it, the algae and the green and the poison waters, you can't turn a blind eye anymore.
I think the other thing that came out of that, for me, which really stood out, was the fact that they are going to be monitoring the different towns to make sure you are making progress. You're not just going to be able to put out your certificate or get your certificate and then sit back and let things go. You're going to have to move forward, and they want to see progress. And I got the impression that it was going to be on an annual basis, that they wanted an update on how you're moving forward. So, and I thought that was significant.
Yeah, definitely. But,
and then there was a little discussion too about the 20-year watershed permit
Yep.
process, which they're just beginning to formulate with 5-year updates versus typically all permits have always been 5-year duration.
Yep.
So the fact that they're willing to look longer term and realize that, you know, these systems and solutions don't occur overnight, I think is a good thing. Clearly, they've got a long way to go to think that whole process through and actually put it into writing and implementation. I think they've bitten off a big piece to chew on, and that they're picking Pleasant Bay to be the first one they're gonna write the permit for, because it's
Yeah.
probably one of the most complex watersheds on the Cape.
Yeah.
But, you know, it'll certainly flush out the issues.
Well, you know, as far as the watershed, on the watershed basis, I think it's a flip of the coin between Buzzard Bay or Pleasant Bay. As, you know, Pleasant Bay, the Alliance has been in place for 20 years and studied every aspect of the watershed, and we've pretty well advanced along as far as the numbers for treatment, you know, within the 4 towns involved. So, yeah. In fact, DEP was always pleading in the seminar, you know, who's going to be first, you know? So, yeah, you're right. We could very well be there. Oh,
I would also agree that not only was Harwich well represented there, it was people from all of the towns of the Cape, obviously, because we all have similar, maybe not the exact issues or concerns, but that wastewater nut to crack. There were workshops where you could attend 2 of the 4, just the way it was broken out, but the 2 that I attended, I think, were well worth the time. It dealt with either financial, regulation, outreach, things like that. At my table, I sat with our town administrator, which was good, to kind of discuss as presentations were going on, details that Harwich had already had in place or was looking at. But for those that were there, both days were well attended. That was another thing I was surprised. Usually one day gets all the effort, but they broke it enough that you'd have a draw on both days. I did pick up something either to pass around now just to look at, because it came from the conference, or we can bring it up under the outreach or other, but it's a little flyer. It's put out by, it was Barnstable 3 Bays, but the title of it was, Does it affect home prices? The economic effect of water quality and degradation. And of course it does, but it kind of talked into what some of the survey responses were, and not that we're centric on Barnstable 3 Bays, but the issues that they brought up and how they're able to reach the general public when it comes down to, other than financing with the money, but how water quality can directly affect home prices and all that, the ripple effect that has. Whether we would be interested in something like that, or that's just information that we could discuss, or maybe our outreach coordinator, but that was something, I grabbed some of those, maybe I'll pass those out. But again, that was the 2nd year now that they've done that. Some stuff was repetitive, which I actually thought was good, because there's some certain things that you can't avoid but have to address, and until you do, it'll keep coming down the pike to every town, not only Harwich. But it also each year there's some sort of new either regulation or update or some sort of technology or some idea or something a town is doing that they weren't doing a year before, that's then shared immediately with everyone that attends, so.
I'll ask you to save that until we talk
Yeah.
about the outreach person and come
Okay.
back to it.
Yep.
Anyone else who attended the conference and wants to add something? I get an impression, and it's only an impression from someone who wasn't there, that the acceleration of the science continues, that the political will is growing. My one concern is, are we matching the financial opportunities and challenges equally seriously?
Well, I have to say, there was a lot of discussion about finances and the fact that the opportunity for forgiveness as far as the funding, as well as cheap interest rates, SRF funding. And I think any of us would be qualified for that townwide, any of the towns. And they want to promote it, so they're doing everything they can to help you get going. Understanding that it's a big nut to crack and it's not going to happen overnight, and the state, feds can't come up with the money any better than the community does. So a concerted effort to make it easier on everybody, I think, is out there. And once we get a plan to start moving, we definitely will be able to get into those programs, you know. The other thing, while we were up there, the young lady from Wacoit Bay that has put on many seminars, I can't remember her name at the moment.
Tona Marie?
Tona Marie. She is willing to come down. She works for the state, actually. She's a state employee at the at Wacoit Bay, which is under.
Department of Conservation and Recreation.
Thank you. So she's willing to come down and talk about outreach. This is one of her strong points. She is excellent. So Peter and I actually talked to her while we were there, and then the month slipped away, and you know, to notify her. But she'd be willing to come on a meeting, and talk about direction and all those types of things.
Would you like to make that as a proposal for
I
a
would.
future
Yep, I definitely would do that.
WIC meeting?
And we could be in touch with her and get it set up and have her come at next month's meeting if she's available. Yeah.
Alan, I'm going to ask you something, and if I'm wrong on this, please correct me. The one gentleman that was speaking about the monies that are going to be available,
Yeah.
the different grants from both
Yeah.
state and federal,
Yeah.
made a comment that even though it's available now and it's going to be renewed,
Yeah.
that you shouldn't, my impression was that you shouldn't drag your feet because they don't know how long that's going to keep being renewed. So one of my points was, and I don't know the answer to this, at what point in this process do you have to have completed before you can apply for these? Now, I'm assuming it would be this final step with the CWMP. That would be my guess. And at that point, we should be getting ready
Yes.
to apply for these, because he did, his last comments were, the sooner the better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that money, although it's being renewed now, may not always be there. So I thought, to me, that was a big take-home.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you figure there's going to be 15 towns on the Cape
Yes.
going after it.
Yeah.
Plus, that same money is available to all the
Right.
towns in the state of
Yes.
Mass.
For other things.
Oh,
So,
yeah, yeah.
so
So I did think that was important, that once we get this, that we, you know, make, and I don't know who does that. I don't know where this, I don't know the mechanism for that, like who,
yeah. Well, it's a combination of players when you get to the funding. You know, Department of Revenue, DEP, Commission.
but I mean, who here in Harwich? What,
Oh, the Board of Selectmen.
all right,
Yeah,
okay.
that-
Yeah, just to give you a little overview,
There you go.
you're referring to, I think, is the State Revolving Fund Loan
Yeah,
Program,
that's
which,
correct.
you know, was For nutrient removal, you can get 0% interest.
Yes.
The other loans, they give out at 2%. They now have, they changed the regulations. You can get something in between now. And they also have what's known as principal forgiveness, depending on your per capita income.
There you go.
You can get up to 25% forgiveness, which is like a grant. So those low-interest loans, whether it's 0 or 2 or somewhere in between, is still a good deal when you get to the construction phase anyway, which is where the big money is. SRF does not pay for design phase. Many years ago, they took that out to stretch the money further. So they pay for planning and construction. A lot of folks don't bother with the planning because these loans do come with strings. Meaning you have to meet certain requirements, certain percent MBE, WB, minority and woman-owned businesses and all those things. But certainly when you go to construction to get a 0% loan, definitely worth applying for. Typically, the engineering firm you're using works hand in glove with the community. You apply for that typically in August of a year is when they receive applications. And then they go through a whole ranking process for those loans. One of the requirements is that you have an approved comprehensive wastewater management plan. And then they issue the prioritized list, typically the end of that year, first of the next year. And then you have to have your approved funding. You actually have to approve that funding amount locally, and then they reimburse you for that loan. You have to have approved that by June of that following year if you make the list. Your designs, construction documents all have to be ready to be bid that following October, and then you have to award it by that following spring. So it's almost like a 1.5-year process to
Yeah.
go through that lead time. So typically, you would apply for that at the same time you're starting your design process.
So what you're saying is that we couldn't apply for this any sooner than August of,
Correct, they receive applications every August.
every August, okay.
I think it's August 12th this year, they're all due.
And once you make an application and you don't make the cut list, do you have to go through the whole process entirely to reapply? Or are there shortcuts?
No, and it's actually they call it a project evaluation form, PEF. That's a fairly substantial application that you submit. And then once you actually make the list, there's even a bigger application that goes in. It's all about the town's bonding and ratings, that you own the land, that you're building your facilities on. There's a pretty extensive list. The first phase is all about, they have a standard form where you have to rank things and document why you put that ranking in. And that's when then all the DEP folks go through and look at that and compare the different projects that have been submitted. Past history, they receive 3 times as much funding requests as they actually have available. What you were referring to in terms of it may not be there, there's actually been moves down in Washington, D.C. for the federal government to cut back on the SRF money. And what they do is they give the states federal monies, who then match it, and then they spread that money out. They're able to spread it even further now because they're doing 30-year loans. They used to do all 20-year loans. So that's why they indicated they don't know how long it will be there or how much will be there. State of Mass is already facing this year a $750 million budget deficit to start the year. So they're not going to be increasing the SRF program, I can tell you that. Typically, that's one of the things that get cut to make those things up. But, and as Alan indicated, or someone, once the communities start, you're going to be competing against your other adjacent community down here on the Cape, because the 0% loan program was put in by former Senator O'Leary, but there's only one community or maybe 2 on the Cape that have actually used the 0%. It's all been used by off-Cape because no one on the Cape has been applying for it. But once they start, you're theoretically competing against 15 other communities or 14 other communities.
I would think in terms of the filing and refiling, although it's a refiling, I think much of that information that you gathered that first time, all that legwork, is ready to roll. The next thing, might have to update a couple things, but I don't think as
Yeah,
much work will be
it's not a
required.
total redo, but,
Yeah.
because you've got all the basic form work done. Did you do water SRF for any of your treatment plants?
Yeah,
I think for the Cahoon building, right? For
yeah,
Ken.
yeah, we did Cahoon.
So, I mean, that's a similar process.
Yeah, that was a similar project. We got a $20,000 forgiveness out of that one. That was it.
Thanks for that update, David. I appreciate that calendar idea. Anyone else on the One Cape Conference that you wanted to mention? All right, let's move along, please, to number 4. David, you want to give us a short update on the final CWMP filing?
Yes, let me give you a couple dates here, so everybody gets them in their calendar. Next Thursday, not this Thursday, the 28th, at 5 o'clock in this room is the Development of Regional Impact Cape Cod Commission hearing. It's the same subcommittee for the commission who heard or prepared the comments reports for the CWMP when it was filed with the Mass Environmental Policy Act at the state. Now it's at the local level. I've spoken with John Eidman at the commission, who oversees this process. He said, it's because it's the same people. If you want to give a presentation, to focus it more on updates of where you are implementation-wise, such as the Muddy Creek Bridge has been done, where we are on the Cold Brook study, those types of things, instead of giving the full overview again. So I'll prepare something for that, probably be pretty short, and answer any questions they have. It might be good if someone, chair of this commission, or we can talk maybe to chair of the Board of Selectmen, someone from the town should make a statement, just in support of the whole CWMP process. It could be pretty brief, but in generic, but I think just to be on the record, it would be good to have that. And then they'll make their recommendation. John actually indicated that he will have a draft circulated to them prior to that meeting, and he hopes and envisions that they might actually endorse the draft findings, which would be similar to the comments they sent out during the MEP process. So hopefully they'll recommend that night, and then it will move to the full Cape Cod Commission. And the date for that meeting is August 18th. And that would be at 3 o'clock over at the Cape Cod Commission in the Assembly of Delegates meeting room, which is where they normally meet. And where that would be for the full 15-member Assembly of Representation. He suggested that I then give the overview of the whole program again, similar to what we had done at the last one. So, we'll plan on that.
And how do we pick the individual or individuals for that 28th meeting? Who is most appropriate to speak representing the town, and who does the invitation?
The Cape Cod Commission is the one that does all the advertisements and everything for all these meetings.
Okay.
I would suggest any of the committee members that can attend would be good to show support. Again, it would be good if letters were read for the record of support, whether it's the Board of Selectmen or the Wastewater Implementation Committee Chair, Vice Chair, whoever, or both. Can't hurt. Just to show support to all the other Assembly representatives, that Harwich is in support of this, behind it, planning to move forward.
So that July 28th meeting is actually open to the public, correct?
Yes, they're all open to the public.
Should that be put on the website, that the people can see that? That are interested in, that are interested in attending?
Been in the newspaper.
Good idea.
Yeah, I think there's been local notice done, I'm not sure, I think it was newspaper, I don't know if it's on your
It
website.
has been in the newspapers.
Okay.
I saw it there.
Any further questions for David on item number 4? Okay, I hope members of the committee, when available, can come to that 28th meeting and the August 18th meeting, too.
The 18th was at 3, right?
Yeah.
Right. The 28th is at 5.
Okay, yeah.
For the record, Charlene Greenhalgh, Assistant Town Administrator, if there's going to be a quorum of your committee at the meeting on the 28th, you really should post it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, good point, yeah, good
I
point.
think we just talked about posting it.
No, but, I posted, but if there's a quorum.
If there's a
we're all-
quorum of the
Yeah.
committee there, it needs to be a separate
It has to
posting.
be.
We will get the announcement for the public hearing to Caleb for posting on the town website. Again, this isn't our meeting, it's the commission's meeting, so, but we will reach out to have that put on the town website.
Can we have a sense of, can you attend the meeting on the 28th? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Posting it.
Okay.
Just post it anyway, I mean.
Yeah,
Okay.
post it anyway. yeah.
And you can use their announcement as your agenda,
Great.
so make it a little bit easy for you.
Thanks, Charlene.
That's up to you to do.
Okay, I'll talk to Peter about it.
Yeah.
I won't be able to be there, okay?
Peter will.
No, but I mean the posting.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a legal ad already in the
Not, if
paper.
I show up and you guys are there, I'll leave.
Okay? Thanks, David. Number 5, Jeremy. Job description, expert, outreach person. What's your thinking at this point?
So I sent the job description a couple weeks out. I've gotten some feedback from it. Any feedback that was there, I have put into the document and made the changes. I think there was a few questions that have come up that we as a committee kind of need to address, which probably will also be, I don't know, I guess just their questions, whether we answer them or somebody else has to answer them or not. First question was who the supervisor would be, and I don't know if this is questions, Charlene, that you can answer best. Not to put you on the spot, but did you get the?
I did, and actually, I've made a number of suggested changes, other things came up, and when the subcommittee of the selectmen, the IMA subcommittee met, we actually discussed the outreach coordinator.
Okay.
No decisions have been made, but it was felt that until we actually have the IMA, there's nothing to educate anybody on. That we, have an agreement so that we can go forward, because the idea of the outreach coordinator was to, I hate to use the word sell the idea of the, tying into the Chatham plant. So I think that's been put, I don't want to say on the back burner, it's in the middle burner right now as far as where we're going to go from here. And we still need to talk about who's going to be the supervisor. It will probably be our office at this point, is what I'm thinking, rather than poor Dan. He's got a lot on his plate too, so, but I think it makes sense to have it through the administration office to be the supervisor.
Yeah, that's fine.
But until we actually have something to outreach,
I don't know, I hear what you're saying about the
Yeah.
IMA, but I think this CWMP is going on. So I think we had people, we had the intention that we wanted to inform people of the process as it stands now and what has happened and what's going forward, regardless of where we are with the IMA.
Yeah, actually, that's what I thought this person was gonna do, was to be able to put forth and garner support, of the whole plan. I don't think we haven't done that yet, as far as I can see. And that definitely is a part of it. A major, we need to make sure this is has to go, it's, but we want to be able to inform everybody, to bring everybody along.
Right.
And make sure everybody understands where we're headed. So I think that's the big selling point at this point. IMA, I think, will be secondary to it all. I mean, you have to understand, we need to move forward with wastewater treatment, and we need to move forward understanding that everybody's coming along with us. So I think that's been a criticism, that not everybody's been, on board or understands the full direction of what we're doing.
I would have to agree with that. I thought the understanding was, and I agree, we don't have the IMA yet, and whether we do or we don't may change the information,
The message.
the message, particularly the financial message going out. However, I think we need to get the job description at least somewhat firmed up and maybe start to consider people for this, because if the CWMP goes through and the IMA goes through, and we start to move, the feeling I get from the few people that I talk to in town really don't understand that financial option. And I thought some of that became very clear with the outreach workshop that I went to. And one of the things that they kept bringing up was that it's got to be transparent, and they've got to know, for instance, what it's going to cost to maintain their Title V, all right, throughout, possible replacements. And I believe the one gentleman that spoke in the beginning kind of indicated, and correct me again if I'm wrong, that there's a possibility that they may have like inspections. In other words, you're going to, with these Title Vs, that they could be some regulations where they would have to be checked periodically. That was kind of my impression that I got, that
Yeah,
he said that it might be.
there are already some regulations that require inspections, such as property transfers and other things. Standard practices, you should have your system pumped or checked every 3 years anyway.
Right.
Most people don't. So there's even an education program for those
Yeah.
who will be maintaining their Title V systems and will always be on a Title V system or something similar. I think what you might have referred to is some of the newer technologies, the passive nitrogen removal Title V systems, which is more advanced, may require more monitoring
Yeah.
and inspections
Yeah. All right.
to make sure that they're working correctly if you're taking the credit for the nitrogen removal by installing those systems.
Right. So I think there are some things that the town needs to be aware of. If you just give them the information of what it's going to cost to implement this, and they look at it and think that seems like a lot of money, they also need to know the other side as to what it's going to cost to maintain what they already have. And I don't think that information is out there, that the people really understand that. And whichever way we go, or whether things change, some of that isn't going to change. Maybe the timing will be, but there's still going to be an impact that I think they need to hear. And if you do it at the last minute, it doesn't give people time to digest that information and think about it. And when you first hear the numbers, your gut feeling is to react, and it might be a negative reaction, and we don't want that. And that is kind of some of the feelings that I get out of being a new person in the town, and attempting to understand what's going on. And you figure you've got a lot of people here that are only here part-time, all right? So that's the other thing I think we need to look at. They're going to be impacted as well, but are they going to be here at a time when this can all be explained to them, or are they going to be somewhere else? So, I think the timing is crucial, and I think we need to see that it happens throughout the year so that we can involve and educate all the people that have property that are going to be impacted, at least in Harwich.
Let's get Dan in here, okay? So let's kind of get back to the issue of the relationship between the whole program and the IMA in terms of a job description and timing.
Wait a minute, before you do that, wait a minute. Mr. Chairman, would you explain what IMA means to the folks at home? Intermunicipal agreement?
Intermunicipal agreement between Harwich and Chatham.
There you go. Just so everybody
I guess
knows.
my only, concern about everything is timing. So I would hate to see us go for an outreach coordinator right now, get everyone educated, have them forget by the time we get to a town meeting vote. And I don't know if you guys are planning on full-time contract position or something for this outreach coordinator, but it may be something, you know, if you guys were looking to get people educated now, the non-resident taxpayer meetings that we do would be a good time to have someone reach out to the non-residents who do pay taxes. And then, you know, maybe break it up and have them do like a 3-month stint here, get everyone kind of educated, and then have them come back for, you know, a few months in advance of town meeting to try to get the push at that point. Because I think there's both sides where we don't have an IMA, we don't have anyone voted yes to anything yet. We may be jumping the gun on getting someone in, but I think it's, you know, there's two sides to the coin, I guess.
And frankly, we don't know the costs yet.
Right.
No.
you know, So we don't know that impact. And just as, actually, you mentioned it, the non-resident taxpayer meeting is actually August 8th, and this is one of the agenda items on that meeting, and it's right here in this room.
Bob, anything from your perspective on this?
No, I agree. It may be too early to get someone on board now, but to inform the public of what we're planning on doing, certainly that's a good idea. So I'm glad it's on the agenda.
But I think we can work
Obviously.
on the position description so that we're ready to go when the time comes.
I
And
would,
Jeremy
I
is-
would not anticipate, I mean, finding, and, I mean, it's probably at least 2 to 3 months out at this point. Even if we started today and, you know, went forward. So I think the timing, I mean, yeah, we're looking at really discussions having been done before April 15th for town meeting, because people have, you know, absentee ballots and all different stuff would have to have been done by then. But I think we still have a huge part of the population in this town that think there is a third option of doing nothing.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that's what we need to address and really start focusing on. Because I would say that, I mean, based on conversations I've had, I think we have a majority of people. I mean, not even just this percentage, but I think there's a majority of people that still feel that the option of doing nothing is there.
Yeah,
And-
I've heard that from some of the people that I know. You know, we just aren't going to vote it in.
There are people that don't even know what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had people approach me and say, oh, what's the deal with wastewater? And I take the opportunity to kind of fill them in and let them know that, you know, it's not really an option, it's for the betterment of the community and so on and so forth. But I think there's still a large group of people that don't even know that the project exists.
When you talk about the option, I think one of the things that doesn't come across is that there isn't an option. It has to be done, all right? It just depends on
Right.
how do you want to do it.
And the
You want to
people-
do it nicely in 40 years, or do you want the state to come in
Right.
and say, this is what you're going to do, and you're going to do it in this time frame? And I don't think that people understand that.
Right.
And I know I brought that up to at least one set of people that I know, and, you know, they just said, well, we're not going to vote it. We're not going to agree with it. And that's their take on it. And I think there is a lot of education. I think there's a lot of people out there that really don't understand that.
It's better to steer our own ship here, I think, than
Yes.
let the state do it for us.
So I hear the sense is that let's keep encouraging Jeremy to work on this and give him your ideas. And let's see if we can get this job description fleshed out
Yes.
sooner rather than later. And the IMA will come, of course, but if we had at least something that we're all happy with in terms of the job description, we could, and we went, let's say we're going to pay this person $15,000, just for the sake of argument. We've got enough education to do, almost independent
Yes.
of the IMA, in terms of this basic grassroots outreach. Let's, in my opinion, and it's only my opinion, let's not be held hostage by the IMA. Let's continue to push this outreach person.
Well, I think something to remember too is IMA or no IMA, we still have to sewer the town.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. So, there's always, you can work on, this is what we want to present if we get the IMA or when we get it. If we don't, what the changes are going to be. So, we really kind of only, in that respect, have two options. We either get it or we don't. And if we don't, how are we moving forward? And I think we need to be ready for those two alternative possibilities, instead of waiting, and then all of a sudden, you're gonna have to present this to the town, and we don't have anything ready to go.
Do we have any idea how long it takes to reach out to an entire community? Just out of curiosity,
Was it 320 years right now?
I think a lot of it's going to be where, and this is where I think this communication person would help, is where we're going to do it. Because at the one meeting I was at that the town held, what some of the people voiced was, I'm not hearing anything different. We know there's a nitrogen problem. How are we going to do this? And even at that meeting, it wasn't really clear, all right, how we're financially going to move forward. And I think somebody said it was agreed to by the town already, some part of the financial plan, but I don't think the people really understand it. Like, again, if we, what are you gonna do if you're not sewered? What are you gonna pay? You're being sewered and you're gonna pay this, and how are you going to pay it? And that kind of information, maybe the actual numbers might change, but those options aren't going to change. And I think that's some of the information that needs to get out, and that when you advertise or put a notice out that you're having those meetings, I think we need to indicate what information is going to be at that meeting, that we're going to be discussing your financial impact on the different people in the community.
That's probably more important than to the,
That, to me, is where the
resident than
people are
anything
at. And I think if that's what you're going to address, and you put that in the newspaper or the bulletin or whatever goes out, I think you're going to draw more people, because that's what they're interested in hearing. I don't think that people are going to deny that there's a nitrogen or a phosphorus problem. They want to know how it's going to impact them financially. That's where it's coming down. That's the piece that I don't think is out there. So this communication person, I know I had brought up some ideas as to where we could do it, and some of them aren't viable. But that person, I think, would be able to come up with, all right, how do we reach the whole community, particularly the people that aren't here a lot of the 6 months out of the year or 3 months out of the year. So it's got to be staggered. Are we going to have it some during the day, some at night, some in the afternoon? Might have to have some on a weekend. People that work, they can't always, if they have kids, can't come in at night, can't come in the morning. You may have to have some on a weekend. And I think that's what I was thinking that this outreach person was going to help us with, along with, this is the information we have. What is the best way to present this to make it understandable to the community? That was my impression of what this outreach person was going to do. I could be wrong on that.
I completely agree, and I think the things that we talk amongst ourselves back and forth or across, those are the types of information, those are the ingredients that we
Yes.
give to that outreach coordinator. The outreach coordinator is gonna be the chef. We provide them with ingredients, it's right,
Yes,
I'll make it palatable. This is how
Yes,
we would
yes.
present it, this is how we would follow up with it. This is
Yeah.
the type of media you use, this is the type
Yes.
of either real descriptive type of information or very over, like a cartoonish, I'm just throwing these out.
Yes.
What they have to offer to us. And these are the things that we're gonna vet out within our job description, what we want to present to them.
Yeah.
We have details right now, but these types of things we want them to address. So far, we've talked a little bit about supervision, we talked a little about that. We talked a little bit about IMA before or after, we talked a little bit about that. But there's other issues that we still need to talk about regarding the outreach coordinator. You've gotten some responses, talk a little bit about that now. If we continue on the next agenda item, which we probably will, because we're not gonna solve it all today. How far along have we gotten in the last 30 days, So I think we need to keep going, and that whatever day one is of when that's agreed upon, I think you're looking absolutely right. Day 60 or day 90, you get someone filled, ready to roll with whatever we present. And I know the next agenda item will be the status of the IMA, but I think we've got enough to just refine that, and we're still pretty raw, I think. Jeremy did some good work. The emails were independent, so we don't know each other's comments, but you have that. Do
I
you want to
never
continue going
received
through
it.
those, or is there enough
I
to?
never got it.
You replied back to me.
I did? Sure it's my computer? Never laid eyes on it.
What else do you need from us, committee?
Well,
Or we want to share anything else?
you were pretty much, Heinz, the only one that got back. I think you gave me a few things, but,
I had some
bless
comments.
Yeah.
The only reason that I didn't email them back is, I guess I don't feel as though I have enough understanding to really comment. So I was going to do mine verbally. I seem to do better verbally than I do
Go
in
for it.
written.
I'll double check. I'll double check.
I guess my overall thought on this, all right, was, this I thought was a very detailed job description, and my impression on this would have been that we were basically handing everything over to this person and say, here, go do it. And that was not my impression, and I could be wrong. My impression was that we had the information, and we were going to be giving this person the information and asking them how to present it, where to present it, not that they were going to be developing it, per se, all right? That was my impression, and I could be
Okay.
totally wrong. And my other thought was, when I looked at this job description, this to me would have been a full-time person at about $60,000 a year.
I don't disagree with that.
But that was my thought on this. And so that's why I didn't comment, because I'm not sure exactly,
So that's
What
a
the committee's
difference that I had the different impression.
okay,
So I had the impression was the outreach person was gonna be the boots on the ground person who was gonna be creating the stuff, doing the meetings, and outreaching.
okay, because I thought at the one meeting, we had discussed that although they would help us maybe put it together in a nicer package, we had the information, they would help us maybe where, when, and how, but it was also going to be that maybe some of us would have to be part of this outreach and maybe run some of the meetings based on what this coordinator person was helping us put together. Because I remember we talked about, I believe, you and somebody else had some slides or something, I don't remember who they were, that had some information that could be put together, and then this person would kind of help us fine-tune it so that we were all on the same page if some of us had to do some of the, like a community gathering, that we could answer the questions, that we're all answering them the same. Now, again, I'm new, so my understanding might have been totally wrong.
No, I think what you're referring to, Sharon, is Heinz had done a presentation to the Finance Committee.
Yep.
I had done the presentation as part of the CWMP review to the Cape Cod Commission subgroup. And both of them are very similar, but they give good overviews, general overviews of, you know, one, what is the problem here in Harwich? Two, what are the solutions that were evaluated and recommended? And three, what's the next steps, including finances?
Okay.
So that's available for anyone on the committee to go to any group and use. I think what you were talking about was, you know, we'd work with this new public outreach coordinator, is the term I would use, as your job description title. That would provide marketing input, you know, from that perspective of a new person coming in, what could jazz that up that would make it more understandable to the layperson? To use those types of things. So I think this is always gonna be a hand-in-glove scenario, I think, in that, you know, you've got all the technical knowledge, we've got a lot of the data that's been generated. Now you're bringing in that third arm, the marketing person, to help formulate it and coordinate your program going forward. yes, there'll be the local person who can also give the presentation, but can also line you up to go to the garden club.
Yeah.
You to go to whoever, and, you know, type of thing, because it's all being funneled through them as the point person for those activities.
That was kind of what my understanding was. Now,
I don't think it's any one person's job
Yeah.
to make this program happen in
Yeah.
town.
yeah,
You know, the other thing too is there's a big turnover in the community.
Yeah.
You think about real estate turnovers, a lot of action happens.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this is going to be an ongoing thing, as
Right.
I see it.
yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
a lot of folks come here, they live off sewer, have sewer systems where they are, and others have, you know, Title V, but a lot of them think there's sewers here, but
yeah.
yet to come. So all of that is out there, and it's going to be ongoing for a long time, as I look at it, you know.
So, I mean, as far as what this person is doing, or responsibilities, what is everybody else's take on what,
So I think, I mean, the job descriptions in here are for the coordination of. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing it, but they're the ones coordinating it. So like it says, the coordinator plans and coordinates the media information, public education, community outreach, publications, develops and maintains media contacts. I mean, I think that's all something that you would expect of the person who's coordinating it. Coordinates the activities of public outreach, he establishes the workflow surrounding the publications, manages the media information, so if they don't have it, I mean, they're the funnel, right? So all the inquiries, media, and et cetera, come to this person. They need to figure out who responds and where it goes, and they coordinate that outreach.
okay, right, all right, that's kind of what I was thinking,
Yeah.
but I thought we were also going to be part of that.
Yes.
Yeah, all
Yeah.
right, all right,
Last night I had dinner with my 9-year-old grandchild who lives in San Francisco. And she asked me what I was going to do today. I said, well, I've got a wastewater meeting. And her eyes went like this. Let me tell you about wastewater. We are very concerned about oil runoff from our driveways and our parking lots. This is a 9-year-old. If I let her, she could have talked for 5 or 10 minutes. Someone has reached out to her. It was probably her school, but it could have been another couple places. That's the kind of that's our goal, isn't it? Across age, gender,
because
Where
this
they
is going to
live.
take a long time to
They
get it
get, you know,
implemented.
second and third grade, they have the charts, right, with the ozone, where the water goes and the ants. I mean, that's what they're doing in second and third grade, so that's what they're.
Let's have Jeremy wrap this up. What else do you need from us?
So any changes, I think, I mean, I don't think it's omitting anything. If you want more detail in something, you can. I don't know that we need specific details, because I think letting them kind of run gives them somewhat more freedom and you get a better outcome. So, but if there's something you want to change in there, if you want me to add our committee in some form or whatever, we can do that. Because I don't think I mentioned the wastewater implementation committee, because when I was doing it, it was kind of like, how many cooks do we have in the kitchen?
Well, I would think their main focus would be the town administration staff and the wastewater implementation committee that they're taking their direction from.
Right.
Correct, yeah, no, I understand that.
I guess that was the other one, on the department.
Yeah, I changed that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Okay.
to the committee,
So who is it now?
to committee.
Oh, the committee, as
Yeah.
opposed to the Board of Selectmen, since, I don't know how the
Well,
finances
that's,
would run.
I don't know. That I think
We
was
pay the
more-
bills.
Right. I
So
mean,
is it the administration, or does it fall under the Board of Selectmen?
Yes.
Yes,
I mean, basically, it's both, it's a policy initiative through the Board of Selectmen that administration
Implement.
okay,
implements, exactly.
All right.
So, of course, you know, there needs to be a close coordination with this committee.
yes,
There has to be.
yeah,
because you're the ones who are gonna go out and do the dog and pony show to different entities. You know, I think if there's a large meeting, then you probably may want the coordinator to be the facilitator of that meeting. But when it's smaller groups, community groups, you know, then one of you, or even, you know, Dan, me, Chris, whoever, you know, can attend. We have, I don't want to call it a script, but we have the points
Right.
that we want to raise,
Right,
so that we're all consistent in what
Yeah.
we're
yes.
putting out there. Inconsistencies is not a good
Not-
thing.
no,
Not a good
no.
thing at all.
I agree, all right.
So, can you send me what you have?
I was going to say, Jeremy, do you have
the
an updated
latest?
version that you can send around then to everybody?
Yeah, I've been updating it as we.
Yeah, because
Please put a comment
you
across
already-
there, only back to you again.
Yeah, only,
Yeah, that's-
yeah, it should only go, that, because I'm thinking that you may have already, somebody may have already caught some of the things that I had, so.
Probably.
Alan may need to CC himself.
All right, let's move along, please. Thank you all for that
I can move
input.
to the next item.
Agenda, item number 6, and it's a long one. This 59-page Harwich Sewer Use Regulations, discussion and possible vote. I feel uncomfortable with a possible vote because Peter's not
That's why
here.
it says possible.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
On this item, it was, back in March
Right.
16th, we brought this up, and we took a vote on it at that time. And it says, after some discussion, a motion was made by Jeremy and seconded by myself that read, the WIC recommends to the Harwich Board of Selectmen that they adopt a one-page short form sewer use bylaw for approval at town meeting that grants them the authority to issue sewer use regulations that they can revise as needed in the future after holding a public hearing on changes. The subject sewer use regulation should be issued in draft form prior to the bylaw vote at town meeting and also posted on the town's website for public review. Motion passed 5-0.
I remember that.
So I think that pretty much takes care of that
This is an
item.
old item, I don't know why this is
Yeah.
just the
And,
way.
we can
And then in
move
terms
on.
of the update, the first meeting's actually tonight, so.
Yeah.
Yep, 6 o'clock at the community center in Chatham.
Is that where the kids go after school?
That's right.
Yes,
Okay, I know where that is.
the old Main Street School.
Okay.
Any other items, any comments, excuse me, on number 6? Okay, let's go to 7. David, I guess this is,
Before we leave 6, it said update on Chatham IMA on 6 as well, it was the first.
The meeting's tonight, that's what.
Oh, all right. All right. Wait, everyone, okay,
There's nothing to update.
touche, okay. All right.
all right. David, how about Cold Brook meeting, July
Yeah,
8th?
There was a meeting here on July 8th. Some folks were in attendance at that. I sent around the presentation from that meeting. I thought it was very informative. Michael Locke from Harwich Conservation Trust was able to attend, as was Brian Dudley from DEP. And, you know, went through all the work that they've been doing the last 2 years, the monitoring. The biggest, or the biggest new item that was uncovered in the monitoring, a lot of it matched into what had been done as part of the Mass Environmental, Mass Estuaries Project. But the biggest thing that they uncovered was, I'm trying to figure out if I have a figure here that I can show. If you looked at, I know a lot of you can't see this, but this is the shape of Cold Brook with Saquatucket Harbor being down here, that the vast majority of the groundwater flow actually comes in sort of at that elbow, not coming down through Grassy Pond and across Bank Street and then down through. So their recommendation is to build a pond over near this elbow through one of the former cranberry bogs. And they believe that that would then get us up into the range of the natural nitrogen attenuation that we've already assumed and has been incorporated into the program being 50%. versus the 35% that they found under the existing conditions. So the next step will be, all this information has been sent to Harwich Conservation Trust. The folks they've been working with at the Department of Ecological Restoration have all left, so they have a new person who's now been assigned, and they're getting brought up to speed, because that's been their partner in helping to do this restoration, as well as, I guess, provide some financial resources. So once that person's up to speed, we'll be scheduling a meeting to get everybody back together again. You know, it appeared that they're at least open to looking at it. They hadn't proposed open water bodies, but there was also some elevation issues between some of the reports. I think that's all been worked out now, and the feeling is that actually what they were proposing would result in some open water bodies. So let's take it the next step and actually create an open water body that gets us the natural nitrogen attenuation that we need, so.
How large might this be, this open water body?
I think that one was in the 6 to 7 acre range. I
Thank
don't
you.
have the, I think it was in the presentation.
All right.
It's like half the ball.
I was there, I attended. They have it broken down into cells, so it's one of those cells. Like David mentioned, Conservation Trust was there, they did a lot of listening, very little talking. It's more absorbing and listening, and they have their other survey being done, their program, and that'll be the next step, is actually that meeting of the two minds of Conservation Trust and the town. I had the impression that it's a strong possibility that something will take place, but there's still a lot of shaping left to be done, agreeing upon. But it's certainly from the town's perspective and the review of that bog area that it was important that we did the study. It was a good thing that we did that study, and we got some results that we can use going forward if we can come to a compromise and understanding with the Conservation Trust to the point of saving lots of money in our wastewater overall plan.
Mr. Chairman, the area, just to make sure the information's correct out there, was if they do what's known as basins 2 and 3, that would be 10 acres. The one that they've recommended, which is at that elbow, which would probably be a first priority, which is basin 4, was 3.5 acres. That one would be deeper than the other two. So it's really, you're trying to get the volume of water versus just the surface area.
So that water flow that's at the elbow, that's more from up at Paddock's Pond above?
Yeah, it's coming from the north area versus over near Grassy Pond.
So that's an area that would, if we don't do that, we would have to sewer in there.
Yeah, and there is some sewering proposed there, but, you know, if we can get that 15% increase as a minimum in natural nitrogen attenuation, that offsets 200, 250 homes from having to be sewered.
At one point, I asked the question, this type of water body, if it was amenable to Conservation Trust through the study, would we be more advantageous to have a shallow, larger pond or a smaller, deeper pond? And the answer was yes, meaning large and deep. But, so, there is room within all those basins. I think should be able to come to some compromise to get something in there. But having water in there is good.
So who has to agree, so I take it the study done by the University of
Yep.
Mass, Dartmouth, that was the one that recommended cell 4.
As well as others,
As-
those others as
yeah.
well.
But I think they, and
As a
a little bit,
first, yeah.
yes.
As a priority.
So who has to agree to this?
Conservation Trust, they own all that property.
Okay, here in Harwich, all right, okay.
Good question. Question.
I don't always follow these.
Anything else for David on the Cold Brook meeting? All right, final item, number 8, new business or other business.
Well, this was kind of one of the things I mentioned earlier, I think everyone has seen one, just pass these down.
Heinz, can I have one?
Yes, absolutely. And again, I'm not so concerned about the location that was mentioned here, or the details, yeah, oh, you got one, I'll put some up there. But as part of the things that we may give at outreach coordinator, this was, you know, what would this look like if Harwich was the targeted audience? You know, is it just as important? Is it more important? How would, I would think it would affect us in similar ways. And in the back, that was the response from a survey they got. And what would people do if their water quality got worse? And, you know, some people are willing to move, but others would address it. But those are the types of things I thought would be a first kind of foray into contacting and connecting with our community at some point, in some level, and then get a response and then take it from there. But it was something that I guess maybe we've all mentioned at some point, but this is the first time I actually saw it with text and color and graphic.
And I think there is also, if you look at the bottom, there is the website, again, that the people in the
Yeah.
town, they all start out with capecodcommission.org, and this is /3bays, that the people can,
Right.
on their own, go out and look at this as well.
And ours
So-
could be Harwich then,
Yeah. And ours would be Harwich, but it gives you an idea of how it was done. And I like the idea that they always have these websites that the people can go to on their own and look at some of this. I think that's also an education process, if they're willing to take the time to do it.
A website is all good and dandy, but you got to do something to get people there.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, with some of this, they don't even know that it's available.
They did.
No, well,
Well, Sharon may not know that the committee, to date, I think, has done at least 3 brochures over the years. One of those was mailed to every water customer to their home. So if you lived in East Long Meadow, but you had a house here and you had a water account, but your water bill goes to East Long Meadow, it was even mailed to East Long Meadow. So those brochures have been distributed at the community centers, town hall, the libraries for the last 2-3 years. Heinz keep replenishing them. They're on boards
Yep.
located there. They went to the mailers. There's been 3 different versions. And everything at the end references to the town's website where all these documents are posted.
Yeah. And they have library, community center, Harwich Town Hall, and Chamber of Commerce.
All right,
These
so,
big billboards, yeah.
so then these websites are available on the Harwich website under wastewater? Or, like, where, if somebody was looking, where would they look for?
When you go on Howard and you open up, there's a listing, and it has wastewater right there on that
Right,
listing.
so, but,
So you click on that, and you're in it.
all right, but that's where these other websites would be available. All
Yeah,
right,
this is one that was done back when it was the Harwich Water Quality Task Force.
Right, the
Now the
prior.
website's changed, but that referenced everybody to that one. I don't have the most recent one with me. But that's been available at the town hall, community center, and libraries for 3 years. It's been
Yeah.
replaced with the newer one now.
all right,
I think on the back, there's more even.
all right.
Heinz, thank you for bringing this to our attention. Does the commission get this out into the Barnstable community?
I don't know. This was just brought to that 2-day conference and was left on a table.
Yes.
I don't know if they mail them or do they leave them at their libraries. I don't know. I mean, I don't have a connection directly right now, but anyway, I think would be good. You know, that would be our outreach coordinator kind of thing.
Dan, what do you think?
Well, I mean, it was just in response to the town's website, going to wastewater implementation committee, and there's a list of documents on the left side. But if I was a resident and I was looking for information, it's not a super user friendly. I mean, yeah, it's there, but you know, you see this, and this makes sense. You open the CWMP that's 1,000 pages long, and you're like, all right, I'm not gonna spend my time reading this. I think, like that one pamphlet that she was just looking at,
Yeah.
if you had a big link to that, instead of on the left side, right in the middle of the web page, that had kind of a shortcut to a PDF with, information on it, may get a little bit more, out to the people.
I think that's a good point.
Because this makes sense. But that's all I got.
That's all I got.
Any other or new business? All right. I'm going to entertain a motion then to adjourn.
Adjourned.
Second?
Second?
Thank you all for coming, especially you, Dan,
Thanks, Dan.
Bob, and Heinz, taking a large part of your morning.
Thanks for standing in for Peter today.
You're welcome.